The cold bit into his skin like tiny needles of ice, each gust of winter wind cutting through the thin layers he wore like paper. His hands trembled, not just from the chill but from exhaustion, hunger, and the quiet ache of invisible battles. Behind him, the city glowed with distant, indifferent lights, skyscrapers that never slept, cars that roared past with destinations he couldn't imagine anymore. As he sat alone on the metal bench at the bus stop, worn sneakers pressed into damp concrete, James didn't know that his life was about to change forever. He had no clue that the woman curled up beside him, arms wrapped tight around her knees and shoulders shaking in silence, was not just another commuter caught in the storm, but a woman whose decision, in the next few days, would alter the course of his destiny. When he took off his only warm jacket, the one he wore every day and night since he lost his apartment, and placed it over her shoulders without hesitation, he didn't know he was handing kindness to someone who carried power in her name, and pain in her past. He didn't know she was watching, not just with her eyes, but with a heart that recognized brokenness because she'd once been shattered too. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of one selfless act to change a life, then please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the Kindness Speaks channel. Every action you take helps this message reach someone who's waiting for a sign. James hadn't always been like this. Just 2 years ago, he had a small apartment in the south end of town, a job at the local auto garage, and dreams that, while modest, felt solid beneath his feet. He'd grown up learning that nothing in life came easy, but with enough work, enough honesty, you could build something worth holding on to. His mother, who worked nights at a diner, used to tell him, kindness is like a seed you plant, baby, you won't always see it bloom, but it will. He believed her. Even after she passed, her words echoed through every wrench turn, every oil-stained glove he wore at the shop. But life, as it often does, unraveled fast. First, the shop downsized. Then the bills stacked like bricks around his chest. Then the eviction notice. He applied to dozens of jobs, stood in lines for hours, but nothing came. The pandemic had stripped the city bare. Shelters were full, food banks strained. James tried everything, and still he found himself sleeping on benches, eating from church boxes, shaving with rainwater and dull blades from dollar stores. And yet, he never let the weight of it kill his decency. The woman arrived just as the evening darkened into storm. The last bus had already sputtered past without stopping, driver probably assuming neither of them were worth the trouble. She was wearing heels too thin for this weather, a pencil skirt that clung to her like a mistake, and a blazer soaked through at the shoulders. Her dark hair clung to her cheekbones, strands of it frozen to her face. She didn't speak, didn't ask for help, she just sat down and held herself tight, trying to be smaller than the wind. James glanced at her, blinked hard against the rain, and without a word, stood up and slid his jacket around her shivering form. It was oversized, threadbare in some places, and smelled faintly of the street, but it was warm. "You need this more than I do," he said gently, avoiding eye contact. She opened her mouth, but the words didn't come out. Just a choked breath. He returned to the bench and crossed his arms, pretending he wasn't freezing. Pretending it was nothing. The truth was, inside that small gesture lived a mountain of pain. James had been invisible for so long he no longer expected to be seen. He didn't help people to get noticed. He helped because it was the last piece of himself he had left. That jacket had kept him alive more nights than he could count. Giving it away wasn't a small thing. It was a sacrifice. But that night, James chose kindness over comfort. The woman stayed beside him for nearly an hour. No bus came. Eventually, she stood, tugged the jacket closer around her body, and looked down at him like she was trying to memorize the shape of his face. Her lips moved. A whisper. "Thank you." He smiled weakly, nodding once. Then she was gone, heels clicking into the distance, vanishing into a veil of snow. James never expected to see her again. But she didn't forget. The next morning, James woke up behind the old train station, where the concrete walls offered some cover from the wind. His arms were stiff, his stomach growling with hunger that had become so familiar it no longer even ached, just sat there, hollow and constant. He pulled his arms tighter across his chest, but the jacket wasn't there. The cold hit him sharper than before, but he didn't regret giving it up. Not even for a second. Kindness, even when it hurts, still feels right. Across town, in a glass-walled office on the 17th floor of the Barrett building, Evelyn Hart stood by her window, cradling a cup of hot tea. Her assistant was already rattling off the morning schedule, phone buzzing with meetings and decisions. But Evelyn wasn't listening. Her thoughts were still at that bus stop, still wrapped in the coat that now lay across the back of her leather chair. It smelled like city smoke and damp wool, but to her it carried the warmth of something she hadn't felt in years, unasked for compassion. She had spent the night thinking about the man who gave it to her. Who was he? Why did he do it, knowing he had so little himself? She'd built a billion-dollar company from the ground up, survived ruthless competitors, clawed her way through boardrooms full of skeptics, but it had been a long time since someone had shown her kindness without agenda. The more she thought about it, the more something inside her stirred, a feeling that had lain dormant beneath years of ambition and loneliness. She didn't just want to thank him. She needed to know him. To understand the kind of heart that gave warmth without asking anything in return. She picked up the phone and called security. I need footage from the public camera near 8th and Main. Timestamp: 7:40 p.m. to 9 p.m. last night. Focus on the bus stop. It took hours, but finally she had something. A still image, grainy but clear enough, of James draping the jacket over her shoulders. She enlarged it, staring at his face. The weariness in his eyes. The quiet resolve. She whispered under her breath, "Who are you?" And that was how it began, Evelyn's quiet mission to find the man who had reminded her what it meant to care without reason. And across the city, James carried on, unaware that someone powerful, someone watching, was about to change everything he thought he knew about life, worth, and the echo of kindness. Evelyn didn't just delegate the task, she personally took part in the search. She visited shelters, posed as a volunteer at soup kitchens, even handed out flyers with a still photo of James. It was humbling. People recognized her, whispered behind her back, and she didn't care. One woman at a church basement remembered a man who fit the photo. He helps sweep the floor after we eat, she said. Never asks for anything, just does it. That clue sent Evelyn across town again, her car idling outside a small mission center as snow began to fall softly again. Inside, James was mopping the tiled floor, his movements slow but deliberate. He didn't see her at first. Not until she stepped inside, her heels silent against the scuffed linoleum. He looked up, blinking. It took a second. She stepped forward, pulled his coat from her bag, and held it out with both hands. "You gave this to me. I came to give something back." His brow furrowed, confusion knitting into caution. "Ma'am, please," she said, her voice lower now, thick with emotion. "You gave me more than a jacket that night. You reminded me who I was before I became someone too busy to see the cold in other people's eyes." James said nothing. His silence was the kind that demanded listening. She took a deep breath. "I don't want to embarrass you. But I'd like to offer you something. A chance. Not charity, not pity. A job. A real one. You gave me kindness when I had nothing to give in return. Let me do the same." He stared at her for what felt like hours. And then, without a word, took the jacket back into his arms, slowly, reverently. A nod followed. It wasn't agreement, not yet, but it was something. James didn't sleep that night. He lay on the church cot staring at the dark ceiling, the fabric of the returned jacket bunched under his head. A job, a second chance. He had wanted this so long, he wasn't sure he trusted it anymore. Too many empty promises, too many closed doors had trained him to brace for disappointment. But Evelyn had looked at him, not through him. That meant something. The next morning, a black car picked him up. He almost didn't get in. He stood on the icy curb, heart pounding like it did the day he got evicted. But then he thought of his mother's voice, "Plant the seed, baby." He stepped in. At the office, Evelyn introduced him to the head of facilities. It was janitorial work, nights, low visibility, steady pay. She didn't make a show of it. She just said, "You're hired. You'll get a hot meal every shift, and I'll cover your first month's rent if you want to move into a clean room we keep for staff transitions." James blinked. The offer was overwhelming, too much all at once. But Evelyn didn't expect gratitude. She just handed him a keycard and walked away. That night, James cleaned floors he never thought he'd step on. And when he passed by the executive suite, he paused and looked through the glass, at the woman who was once shivering on a bench. She caught his eyes, just for a second, and gave a soft nod. That night, James wept, not because he was weak, but because someone believed he was worth saving.